everybody, and welcome to this week's video. I don't normally do a standalone sit down video just because I don't really have the time to do that. I normally pick up my camera and I vlog and I talk at the camera and I take you around for like family life, home life, my life, and have general chit chats and just keep you updated on the stuff that's going on with us. But I posted a video on Monday, which would have been last week for you guys, and it was all of the footage that we had from our pregnancy, the pregnancy that we lost. And I wanted to document specifically our genetic testing journey and kind of like how it came to be, but in the detail with like the results, what happened, what was said, how Jay and I were thinking about it, our opinions on the whole situation, and just kind of what happened. So the reason for doing this is because when Jay and I were going through this 5-6 weeks ago, it was really hard to find information out there that was like a real case situation where someone had kind of documented it and could kind of make it almost like idiot proof, could explain to us exactly what was going on, why, and what they were kind of going through, so that I could almost compare our situation to it and also just be like, they're at this stage and that's where we were at. There was nothing. And Mumsnet was like the worst thing for me to go on to, but it was the only place that was kind of there for me to be able to put the journey out there, because at that point I didn't want to post on here or on TikTok or even on my own personal Instagram. I didn't want to divulge to everyone that we were going through this process of going through a miscarriage, going through this, going through that. I announced that we were expecting and then lost the baby after we had kind of gone through everything. I want to post our story so that if someone is going through it, I get it. It's one of the most horrible, heartbreaking, stressful situations, and everyone else around you is trying to stay really, really positive, and you try and stay as positive as you can within the situation, but at the same time you grasp the severity of it because of the impact it can have on not just your little one, yourself, your own health, your partner, your relationship with your partner, your family situation, and just like the wider context, and then like having to deal with like the outside world and the stigma from that. It is a honestly devastating situation to go through, and for people that have to go through it and they get positive results at the end of it that they are happy with, they're very, very lucky. And I'm glad that there's situations like that out there, but you also have to be really realistic with it as well, of being like, sometimes you don't get the results that you're after, and sometimes, like in our situation, it doesn't end up going the way that you want it to go. I'm gonna talk about it, and hopefully, even if this helps just one person, or if you're going through genetic testing and you're just a little bit confused about the whole situation and what's going on, because the charity websites are great and the NHS website in the UK is brilliant, but there is just so much information out there that it just gets confusing, and sometimes you just want to hear it from a real life person that's experienced it, not a healthcare professional, a normal person that you would walk past on the street that can just be like, I went through it and this is what I went through. I found out that I was pregnant, and I was going to keep it a surprise for Jamie for his birthday. However, I was, from day one, suffering really, really bad with, like, my morning sickness was bad when I was pregnant with my first child, but being pregnant with this little one was a lot. I felt more poorly and nauseous than I did when I was with my other pregnancy. But like physically I wasn't being sick. But I was exhausted. I was struggling to stay awake. I was extremely lethargic. I couldn't think straight. I was really struggling to just function as a basic human being. And I just couldn't do anything. Like, I was just exhausted and it was a lot. So it was almost like from day one, I kind of knew that something wasn't quite right, because the pregnancy and just myself in general, I just felt really, really rough and really, really poorly. But I just thought it was because I had a toddler, yada, yada, yada. I just put it down to that and ignored it. We obviously didn't tell anyone that we were pregnant, we were expecting. We did that because other people were expecting their children, and just because of the type of people that we are, we don't want to take the limelight away from other people when they are expecting, having children, or had a child. It's their time to shine, and our time will come. We don't need to take the limelight from other people. We're not those types of people. So we didn't tell anyone, so it was just Jay and I kind of just going through it. And we went to our booking in appointment. All of our bloods came back and they were completely fine. I actually had 2 booking in appointments because I am over like dual county. So I had my first booking in appointment at Milton Keynes, and then I had my other booking in appointment in Northamptonshire. And both of those, they did bloods, they did my obs, they looked at me like, they were like, yeah, you're completely, like, you're good, your bloods are completely fine, everything is good, a-okay, which was great. We went into our 12-week scan, and out of choice, Jay and I are always like, well, if they're offering us a test that's non-invasive, it's not going to cause any harm, it's just added into the stuff that they're already doing, we're going to have it. So we opted for the combined testing, and that involves taking a look at your bloods with your hormone levels, and they look at your HCG, they look at your PAPE, and just kind of, they look at everything. They basically look at everything that they could possibly do to build up a picture of what's going on inside of you and what's going on inside of your little one who is inside of you. They also take a look at your scan and all of the measurements and the readings that they can take from that scan that your sonographer does for you. So I went into my 12-week scan, and unfortunately, because Jay and I hadn't told anyone that we were pregnant, our childcare fell through because they couldn't have Archie that day. They just decided they couldn't have him. So he had to come to the hospital. So Jay wasn't actually able to come into the 12-week scan with me, which was quite terrifying in itself, because you know at the 12-week scan, like, going to scans in general are very nerve-wracking thing. And as much as they're exciting that you're going to get to see a little one, at the same time, they're absolutely terrifying because of what you could potentially have been told. So I went into my 12-week scan, and I signed the paperwork for the combined screening, and we started scanning. And she looks at, basically, I had a female sonographer, she basically looked at everything. She looked at the heart, she looked at the brain, she looked at the body, she'd made sure that there was like where their legs were and where their hands were and stuff like that, and looking at their face. Baby was like, I have never seen a baby move so much during a scan as I did in that one. In my first scan, when I had my other pregnancy, so when I was pregnant with my little boy, he didn't really move around. He kind of just stayed still. He was quite chilled. He'd move around a little bit, but he wasn't really bothered. Whereas for this one, the baby would not stay still. They were crazily hyper. They were moving, rolling, was making it very, very hard for the sonographer to basically get images and stuff, to the point where I was actually in that room, the scanning room, for so long. She took measurements, as they do. They check your placenta, they check like the blood flow, they check the heart rate and all that lot of the baby. They took the NT measurement. And this is where it gets confusing for us, because our NT measurement was completely normal. When I say the levels that they look at are between like a spectrum, we were right at the very end, like right at the, like a small amount, like furthest away from there being like, this is the inkling that there might be something wrong with your child, to this is like, your child isn't even there, there's no measurement. Our measurement was here. It was so far away from it being an inkling that there was anything wrong. So the NT measurement was the fluid behind their neck, and it was perfect. It was the most perfect reading you could possibly have got. And so the sonographer never said anything, didn't say that she was like concerned about anything. She was just like, yeah, there's your little one. They're completely fine. And I got given my ultrasound picture, and I just remember after we found out everything, you look back and you overanalyze looking at that picture, and the only thing that I could pick up on was the nose, the nose bone, the nasal bone on the baby wasn't really visible. The baby's head was quite to me, looked quite flat. I'm not a trained sonographer. I have no medical qualifications whatsoever. However, it was going off of what I personally felt and what I thought, and I just felt like there was something not quite right with looking at the ultrasound. But that was after we got our results back from the combined screening. Now, the combined screening, they take your bloods, and like I said, they build up a full picture, and they basically go and look at all of your hormone levels, and they combine it with the screening that you have had done with your the scan, and then they make it like a decision based on that. And it isn't a person making the decision, it's a computer. So they basically put all of your data, all of your measurements, all of the statistics, they put it into the computer, and the computer basically gives them the number. It gives you your figures that you need to basically say what your risk is. So in a normal case situation, which is what we would experience with our first child, you don't normally hear anything. You normally get a letter through in the post 7 to 10 days later, and it's normally like, here are your readings, there's nothing to worry about, like blah, 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 blah. And that's it. And then you think nothing else of it. Jay and I went in quite naively, because you don't hear about it on a day-to-day basis. You see so many people that are pregnant and like going through stuff, and you never hear anything about this whatsoever. Like, Jay and I were completely oblivious to it, and we were just didn't think anything of it. We were just like, oh, it's just part of the process, we just ignore it. I got a phone call. We had the scan on the Friday. I got a phone call on the Thursday. On the Thursday? No, the Tuesday. Yeah, so I had my 12-week scan, and then I got a phone call on the following Tuesday. So at that point, I'd turned 13 weeks pregnant. So I was 13 weeks pregnant. Was not expecting the phone call whatsoever. As soon as I saw the hospital number flash up on my phone, my heart sank. My heart was like pounding away in my chest, and it felt like I couldn't breathe. And I instantly, gut feeling, knew there was something wrong. Now, I did not have any inkling that it was going to be the fetal medicine team calling me. You never do. I just thought, like, it's the hospital calling. It could have been an appointment number, but I knew there was a gut feeling there was something wrong. And I think you just have to trust yourself when it comes to mother's intuition. You do know, and you just have to listen to it a little bit. And I always say that I have a sixth sense, and it comes like I'm a little bit witchy and I kind of get things. And then for this situation, unfortunately, I was proven correct. So I answered the phone, and she just said, I've got your test results back. It's not good news. Do you want me to talk to you now? Because she could hear my little boy in the background. And she said, or do you want to get hold of your partner? You can come in and talk to us in person about the results, or do you want me to just tell you? And I was like, just tell me. I need to know, just tell me. My husband at the time, thankfully, was on a Zoom meeting with me, so he could see me talking on the phone, and I had it on loudspeaker, so he could kind of hear what was going on. And basically, she was like, it's not good news. You have got a higher reading for Down syndrome. Edwards and Patau's, which is what they also test for when they do the combined screening, are completely fine. You also get like other rare genetic conditions that get tested as well, but they're not like the common ones that get like spoken about. So she was like, you've got a 1 in 99 chance that your baby is affected by Down syndrome. So at that point, realistically, your world comes crashing down, crumbling around you, and you feel, I felt numb. I just felt like the world was like moving around me, but I was just frozen. And I was like, I don't even know how to begin to even process this. And in my head, I automatically just went, this is not good. Our baby's got Down syndrome. We need to work out what we're going to do. Now, at this point, it's noted the combined screening is not always accurate. You can get false readings on it where your baby is not actually affected by anything. It's not an accurate test at all, and they make it very, very clear to you when this happens. However, I was going with my mother's intuition and my sixth sense, and I was saying that there was something wrong, and I just wasn't having anything. I was like, no, this is what I thought it was. It's the worst of the worst. Our child has got Down syndrome, and we now need to go through this whole process of this unknown process of what you go through. And I just remember in my head going, I know now that the genetic testing that I learned about at GCSE Science, that I looked at in-depthly at that point, I could never imagine in a million years learning about it and then having to experience it. Like, that blew my mind. So she explained to us about like the next steps of the process. So you can either go for non-invasive testing, or you can go for non-invasive, or you can go for diagnostic. So non-invasive would be that you basically go through like anything that you can have done on yourself before they start looking at things like the amniotic fluid and the placenta. Now, because of the readings, they were kind of just like, just go for the Nipt. Now, the Nipt is a blood test, and that blood test is 99.9% accurate, because they can't make it 100. They can't say it's 100% accurate, but it's 99.9% accurate. So if you get a high reading and it's like it's a positive result on that, and it shows that it's got a high risk, it's very, 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 very likely that your child has got the condition that the Nipt is tested for. So you've either got that option, or you can skip that and go straight to diagnostic. And diagnostic, they've got the two avenues. You can either have amniocentesis, which is done from 15 weeks of pregnancy onwards, or CVS, which is done from 14 weeks onwards. Now, I was talking to the lady on the phone, and she was like, look, book in for an appointment for tomorrow, talk it over with your partner, like make a decision as to what you want to do. Come in and we'll talk about it, and then like if you want to have the Nipt done, we'll have the Nipt done there. So Jay and I went into hospital the next day. At this point, we had to tell everyone. So we told our in-laws, Jay's parents, we called them over. It was horrendous. We told them that we were pregnant, and they were getting all really excited, but they were really confused as to why, like, I was in floods of tears, like emotional, couldn't hold myself together, and why Jay was like really, really sad. And then literally as soon as we said like, yeah, we're having a baby, but not so good, our child's potentially got Down syndrome. And at that point they were just kind of like, whoa. But we needed someone to look after Archie, because obviously, for obvious reasons, I was not going to put myself through this on my own. I needed to take Jay with me because it was a lot. And I've always said to Jay, like, when we have a child, I know like medical professionals always look at it as being like it's the mum, but that's not how I am. I make a decision, and I will only ever make my decisions with my husband. Like, that is how our relationship is. If Jay and I are not on the same page, we're not making a decision until we're on the same page and we've made the same decision and we've come to the conclusion that we want. So Jay was coming to the appointment. So the very next day, I actually think that she called me on the Wednesday, because I went in on the Thursday. Yeah, they called. So I had my 12-week scan on the Friday. I then had my phone call for the combined screening result test on the Wednesday. Yes, because it was a bank holiday. Got ya. So I got the phone call on the Wednesday. On the Thursday morning, we went into the hospital. We went and saw the fetal medicine team. And basically, we were talking about the options, because I got really, really upset. And I was basically bombarded with a lot of information, and we were going in to be like, we're having the Nipt. And then as soon as she started talking about the statistics, and then I was asking like, what have like the other case scenarios been, like real life world, because at this point I was like, I can't find anything that I want to like reassure me, or to just give me some guidance on what other people have done and gone through, and like what they've experienced and what the process is like, so that I can make a decision myself. I couldn't find anything out there. So I was like, in your practicing world, in your practicing lifetime, what have you seen, what have you experienced, what's the real case scenario like, blah 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 blah. And she said it, and at that point I just went, what are we doing? Why am I doing a Nipt when the result is 1 in 99, which means that I had a 98 out of 99 chance that the child didn't have Down syndrome, which in the grand scheme of things feels like a lot. So the not so nice lady that was on Mumsnet that said that to me, she was trying to put it, like, I saw she was commenting on loads of other people's stuff, and you know when you're just like, there's that one mum out there that's just not very nice, not very supportive. But there was that 1 in 99 chance that the child was affected by Down syndrome. And I was like, that's like, it's not out of 100, it's 99. And I don't know why that one really, like, I think it's because of the gut feeling I was having. I just felt like something wasn't right, and I was just saying, no, I want to go for diagnostic. And then I was like, no, we go for Nipt. And Jay was just going, look, the statistics are this. And like the lady was agreeing with Jay, being like, yeah, like he's speaking like kind of like statistically, like that makes sense. But obviously she can't, because it's not her decision, she has to make sure that it's me making the decision that I wanted to. And she was basically like, you need to go away, think some more, have some conversations, make a decision as to what you want to do, phone me back, we'll get you booked in tomorrow if you want to have the Nipt. Otherwise we will do like the next stage if you want to do anything else. But go away, take some time, because I'm not comfortable doing anything on you. I don't feel like you're making the decision now that's like right. You might regret it, because if they do the Nipt and a result comes back and it says it's low, you don't get offered diagnostic testing after. And she was basically saying, like, what is going to reassure you enough to make sure that you're happy to go through the rest of your pregnancy and have a baby without having at the back of your head, like, eating you away, what's going on? Because I explained to her I'm really anxious about it, and if I did the Nipt, I wouldn't necessarily be reassured enough to be able to get the result I wanted. Anyway, Jay and I came away from the hospital. We basically spoke about it for ages, but we decided we were going to do the Nipt because there's risks when you have the amniocentesis or CVS, and it was, at the minute, it was like the statistics are 1 in 99. What's the point in putting the baby at that small chance of a risk of something happening to it if it's completely healthy? So we booked in for the Nipt, which was on the Friday. So we went in for the Nipt test, and the Nipt test itself was just a blood test. However, I literally said to the fetal medicine lady when she was doing it to me, I was like, this is the most nerve-wracking blood test I have ever had. And it's like, I've had a cancer scare previously. This test that's being done is more, like, it felt more nerve-wracking to me than what I'd gone through previously, which seems absolutely bonkers when you think about it, but at the same time I think it just sums up like how I am as a person. So I had the blood test done, and we had to wait 7 to 10 working days for the results to come back. Now there was also, throw a spanner in the works, the bank holiday Monday was coming up. So that meant that the test result would go off on the Friday, and the test result on the Monday, like the Monday wouldn't really count as a day because it's not a working day, so I would have to wait for the result to come back. At that point, I was trying to find anything that I could on a real life situation online that would kind of give me just an inkling of what was going on, because everything I was seeing on Nipt, on the Mumsnet was just like people coming back with like great news, but their figures were so much higher to begin with compared to what mine was. So I think like the threshold was like if you're 1 in 400 or something, it's at that point that it's like the cut off, and that's when it kind of gets flagged by the system. So having 1 in 99 or 1 in 99 was just a lot for me to get my head around. We went away, like we were waiting for the test result to come back, and we were just like, it's going to be a long wait because it's 7 to 10 days. So basically the fetal medicine person had said that they didn't think I'd get a result the week after the test. They thought that I'd get a result the week after that. However, I went into the next week and I was 14 weeks pregnant. Ironically, on the Tuesday, I had met up with my friend who has a little boy that's 4 weeks older than 4 weeks older or 4 weeks younger, 4 weeks older than Archie. And we basically shared the news that I was expecting. And I was so happy in that moment. I was so happy, and she was so happy for us, and it was just nice, and we like had like such lovely conversations about it. And we were talking about like my due date, and it just felt great. It just felt normal. It felt completely normal. And I thought nothing of it. Get to Wednesday afternoon, it was just after lunch, I got a phone call, and it was the hospital, and I honestly kid you not, I was like, why? Universe, why? Why now? So bearing in mind, we'd had the blood test on the Friday, it got sent off to London on that Friday afternoon. It had been the Saturday, the Sunday, the Monday, the Tuesday. It had been 4 days. 4 days. They tell you to wait 7 to 10 working days. I'd waited 3 working days. No, I hadn't waited 3 working days. Saturday, Sunday are not a working day. Monday was a bank holiday. However, my test result came back on day 4, but that was like the first working day. That was what was kind of like, what is going on? This is insane. So I answered the phone, and I remember the conversation so vividly. She was like, I am ever so sorry to have to tell you this, but your Nipt result has come back as a definite high risk for Down syndrome. So they tested for Edwards and Patels again, because they might as well, if they were doing a Nipt for everything, like they'd done it in the combined screening, and even though we knew the results were low, they were going to come back and do it again anyway. She was like, I'm ever so sorry to tell you this, but you have got a higher reading. Now she was like, you've got your options. She was so helpful. She stayed on the phone with me for so long. Like, I felt so bad. I kept apologising to her because I was like, I feel like I'm wasting your time and like keeping you busy from being able to go and do what you need to do. But I literally was asking her everything and anything in between. And it was just, it was a lot. It was a lot. So we were basically discussing about like next steps. Do nothing. You get extra scans. I was already on extra scans because I had low PAP-A. That was what I must say, actually. My Nipt reading and from the combined screening, the only thing that was low was my PAP-A. And I had low PAP-A when I was pregnant with Archie. So I was like, there's nothing really new there. Apart from that, all of my other hormone levels were completely bang on, Bob's your uncle, exactly where you wanted them to be. My low PAP-A wasn't. So she basically was like, you can either carry on going through the pregnancy, not having anything else done, no other tests, no other screenings, nothing. You'll just get given some extra scans. You'll get you're already consultant led, but you're going to get more like in-depth appointments and stuff, just to kind of discuss what's going on, look at your scans a little bit more, and just to make sure that baby's okay. Or she knew from like my reaction to that, I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. I need you to tell me about like what's going to happen next with diagnostic. So she was like, the 2 options for diagnostic are CVS. CVS is where they put a long needle, long needle in through your stomach, through your abdomen, through your tummy, and it goes and it takes some of the cells from the placenta, and it's like the smallest sample ever. They basically take some of the samples from your placenta and they go and test them, and then they do a blood test alongside it, and they basically take your DNA out of your, they basically work out what your DNA is. So then when they look at the placenta's DNA, they literally are just looking at what the baby's DNA is. Now with that, there is the risk of something called, I always say it wrong, it's like mosaicism or something. It looks like the word mosaic. And that is where basically the placenta DNA is actually different to what your baby's DNA is. But for that to happen is extremely rare. Like really rare. But it is still a possibility to happen. And if that's the case, they'll either repeat the test or they'll offer you amniocentesis. So that's kind of CVS. Amniocentesis is where they basically put a long needle into you and they extract some of the amniocentesis is where they take amniotic fluid, and in that amniotic fluid is literally the cells of the baby, so then they can look at it and tell you what's going on with that. Because it's a chromosomal order, they are looking for chromosomes, so they'll be looking for deletions, like partial deletions, they'll be looking for extra chromosomes, like they'll be looking for everything to kind of get like a good picture, pinpoint of what's going on with your baby. We kind of were just like, okay, like that's the 2 options. Let's go through with that then. Let's just go through with what's going on now. So CVS is offered up to 14 and a half weeks pregnant, which ironically seems absolutely insane to say it. I basically was at the cutoff point for CVS, and if that was the point, if I went past the point of being 14 and a half weeks pregnant, so at that point I was 14 and 3 days pregnant, I believe. So yeah, I was 14 and 3 days on the day where I had it done, so I was 14 and 2 14 and 2 the day that I got my results for the Nipt. And I was basically at the cutoff point for it being like, okay, this is where you're not allowed to have CVS anymore. You're going to have to wait another half a week and have amniocentesis. So I was referred to urgently, John Radcliffe Hospital, because that's who Milton Keynes work with in partnership. And I got a phone call from them the same day, and they booked me in the very next day because there was another bank holiday coming up. That was the only thing that was causing problems, is like the bank holidays were making everyone move really, really fast. And almost that went in our favour because they kind of pushed us through everything a lot quicker. So we weren't having to necessarily wait as long as other people have done, which I've read online, and it's like the longest wait ever. It just, you can't even put it into words how long it is. We went to John Radcliffe on the Thursday, so at that point I was 14.3. We went into the hospital and we sat in a waiting room, and the thing that always got me, it was horrendous. We were sat in a room, we were the first people there, and then another lady walked in heavily pregnant, and she was just there for routine bloods, and she sat in the same waiting room as us. Another lady walked in, she was there to just get an extra scan. Nothing was wrong. She was just having an extra scan for just to carry on, like it was part of her like plan. And then another lady came in with her husband, and they were ready to go into like, they were having like it was like a medication review type thing, and so she'd gone into that. And we were just sat there going, well, this is hard. So we got called into a room called Bluebird Room. Bluebird Room now for me is like traumatic. There's one at Milton Keynes, there's one there, and I know that they are not good rooms. So we went in there, and they basically were just explaining the process of CVS and kind of what's going to happen. So they're going to put a needle in, they're going to scan you first. They're going to scan you to check on the baby. They're going to then scan you to check on your placenta and to make sure that your placenta is exactly where it needs to be. And if the placenta is not in the right place, they might not be able to do the procedure, so they will then send you away and get you to come back at another point to have amniocentesis instead. But then after they've done the scan, they will then sterilise your stomach where they're going to put the needle in. They're then going to put the probe back onto you after it's been sterilised, and then they're going to put the needle into you. They're going to go to your placenta, and then you get like a whooshing motion where they're moving backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Basically a bit like if you've ever seen people have liposuction, not to like the extent and like freakiness of what that is, but it is like they are moving that needle to take out cells for a sample to be able to be tested. So that was kind of like the process. We were talked about all of that. I signed it, and then we waited. And we waited in that room, and it felt like an eternity. It felt like an absolute eternity. They then called us to take us into the room. The consultant was ready for us because it's carried out by a consultant. The thing that was really reassuring was I read on the NHS website that to carry out like CVS and like amniocentesis, they have to do at least 30 of them a year to be able to like say that they can carry on doing them. And so I asked, and this is a random day, an absolute random day towards the beginning of the year, and I just went, how many have they done? And she went, oh, we would have done like 30, like they've done well more than 30 already. She was like, some days we have 5 or 6. I was like, okay, that's reassuring, absolutely reassuring. The risk with CVS and amniocentesis is like 0.5 to 1% of like potentially having a miscarriage, but it doesn't take into consideration after having it done, those children that are going to pass away naturally because there is something genetically or they're poorly. It doesn't take into consideration that. It just gets kind of chucked into that. I got called into the room. Jay and I went in, and she started to scan, and this is where I wish I never had to think about this moment ever again, because it was horrible. So she was scanning, and literally we were right at the cusp of having the needle being done. Like, it's nerve-wracking thing to have to think about or go through. But we were having the scan done to make sure that they could see where the placenta was. So you don't think anything of it. She started scanning, and I was watching the screen, and I vocally just said, this is really weird. I was like, the baby's not moving as much as it did. It's like, it's really calm today. It's not really moving. It's like how Archie was. it's not moving and jumping around like it was at the 12-week scan. At the 12-week scan, like, it would not stay still at all. She then put the screen on for the placenta, and if you've had a scan before, you remember seeing like the red and blue and you can see the blood flow. She put that on and I could see that, and it was like moving through and freely, and it was just like, okay. And then she turned the screen off. I was just a bit like, what's going on? I was like, oh, maybe she's turning the screen off because she's gonna like, she's getting ready to do the procedure. And then she put her hand on me and she basically said, I'm really sorry to tell you this. I'm not gonna cry. I'm really sorry to tell you this, but your baby's passed away. And I hate to say it. I hate to blooming say it. In that moment, I felt loss, panic, anger, grief, relief. Relief that the baby had made the decision, like, genetically, and I promised myself I weren't going to cry. I felt relief because it was like, it's happened naturally and it's okay. It's happened naturally, because Jay and I had the conversation about, if you have a child with Down syndrome, there's a massive spectrum, and this is our opinion now, so you don't have to listen to it if you don't want to, but this is kind of like the thought process of what Jay and I were going through. There's a whole spectrum when it comes to Down syndrome. You could have someone that could live a relatively normal life, or you could have someone that is bedbound, not able to go to the toilet. You become a 24-hour-a-day carer, and it has like a massive impact. So Jay and I had made the decision, just taking into our own home situation, our own personal circumstances, our business circumstances, and the fact that we had a little one. We had made the decision that, sadly, if the baby had got Down syndrome, it wasn't fair for them. It wasn't right for them. And it wasn't right for us and our child and just the wider situation to put them through it. And it was almost like, because we'd had those conversations, our child had naturally gone like, I'm just not going to keep fighting. I'm not going to keep fighting. And they'd passed away. So at that point, our baby had passed away. So we didn't actually have to have the genetic testing done. However, because the baby passed away, we know our child had Down syndrome. So the genetic testing for us is a big thing. The combined screening is a big thing. So if we are fortunate enough to fall pregnant ever again, combined screening is definitely something that we are going to do. I know that you go straight for a Nipt. If you contact fetal medicine after you've gone through a process like this, they will rush you in and get you a Nipt done at 10 weeks. So that would be, if we are fortunate enough to fall pregnant ever again, we will be doing that. And we take it so seriously, and we will listen to those results and those numbers and the statistics and those readings, because they know. So I can't give you an insight into what the procedure feels like. From what I've read online and what I have seen of other people posting online, the procedure it's not pleasant, but it's not unpleasant. You don't feel pain because you obviously have injections to stop you from feeling the pain, like you get numbed. But it's not a pleasant experience because you know why you're there. But we didn't have to go through that. However, we did have to go through the emotional turmoil and the mental turmoil of trying to make a decision as to whether we are going to have the testing, what testing we're having done, what the results are, what the results mean, what we're going to do as a family, what's our decision going to be moving forward, blah, 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 blah. And I can't even begin to put into words, as someone who has now gone through it, the thoughts that you have to go through, the conversations you have to have, the endless thinking about it, because it consumes you having to think about it, is so much. And genetic testing for us is so important, but it plays on your mind so much, and it is such a heavy thing to have to go through. So anyone that does go through it, or if you are going through it and you're watching this, like, I'm sending you so much love, and my thoughts are so with you, because still to this day, I think about it, and yeah, it's a lot. So that's our experience of genetic testing. If you've made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to what we've gone through with our genetic testing journey. If you're going through genetic testing yourself, sending you lots of love. Like I say, my thoughts are with you, and I hope you as an individual are okay, and the results you get and the things that happen moving forward are good and what you need for you. I'm gonna go and get a coffee now because I think I've earned it, and I didn't cry as much as I thought I was going to. So if you're going through it and you feel like you cry at everything all the time, I am 5-6 weeks later, and 5-6 weeks later from going through genetic testing, finding out we had a miscarriage, and then at 14.5 weeks, actually it was longer than 14.5 weeks, it was 14 and 5, 14 and 6, so nearly 15 weeks pregnant, having a miscarriage and having surgery. So if I'm now sat here 6 weeks later and I'm an emotional wreck about everything and anything, and I could cry about it, but I'm saying when it comes to it and you don't want to have to cry and you want to almost be blasé about it, that time does come, because I genuinely thought that time was never going to come. Anyway, sending you lots of love, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video. Mwah.